Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dance Party Book Club. We are very excited to be talking all about A Touch of Ruckus with author Ashvan Otterloo and friends tonight. And I see we have our special friend, Miss Nikki, joining us. So welcome, and welcome to everyone out there. We're going to get to your burning questions as well. But first of all, let's just go around and see who is joining us, and then we will dive into everything about A Touch of Ruckus. Jacqueline, do you want to introduce yourself?
If I can remember how to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Jacqueline West. I am a writer based in Minnesota. Hello. I have written a bunch of middle grade and YA stuff. Most of it is the twisty and spooky variety, and my latest is called Long Lost. And I loved A Touch of Ruckus, and I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, I know. This is the perfect book for Halloween season. It's perfect. Fleur, what about you?
I am the author of Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, and it's a mystery for kids, spooky hotel, super fun. But today I'm just excited to talk about Ash's book.
Yes, we are super excited, and I'm Kim Ventrella, author of various books for middle grade readers, and I have a really spooky story in this book, so if you want to be terrified, check that one out. Those are my Halloween feelings, I guess, for this time of year. But let's head over to Ash. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in, and also like your fashion for this evening?
Yes. Well, hi, I'm Ashvan Otterloo. I'm the author of A Touch of Ruckus, also Cattywampus, but this is what we're talking about tonight. And A Touch of Ruckus is a story about a girl named Tennessee Lancaster, who is the middle child in a big family that loves to argue and cause a lot of noise, and she is so stressed out all the time, and she ends up taking the middle seat, and she ends up going along with everyone else's pizza order and just generally keeps the peace. But she has a secret weapon that allows her to do this even more than the average person. She can touch objects and see the memories that people have left inside of them. So she uses this secret snooping power to keep the peace in her big, noisy, ruckusy family. So one day she decides enough is enough, and she goes to stay with her grandmother in an old-growth forest cabin that is Halloween cozy perfection. There are muffins, there is candy, there are fluffy blankets, there are spooky movies, and everything could not be more perfect until she touches an antique watch. And when she does this, instead of a memory comes out, it is a ghost, and that ghost has a big, gigantic secret that it really wants to share with her, and she's not sure she wants to hear it. So she meets a friend who she kind of has a little bit of a crush on, who is actually really talented at seeing ghosts. So when they touch Tinny's shoulder, she can see the ghost. So the two of them decide that in order to spend lots of spooky, fun time together, they will go ghost hunting in the forest. But the ghosts start kind of sneaking in with a louder and louder creepy message about Tinny's family. And she has to choose between keeping the peace and trying to keep things fun and flirty in the forest, and the ghosts sneaking into her house and telling this message louder and louder, and she starts to get in trouble for things. And so now she has to decide whether to really rock the boat in her family and say some hard stuff, or continue to get blamed by ghosts and be haunted forever. So that's A Touch of Ruckus. And side bonus, if you like crows at all, there are crows that bring presents, and the presents in this story are all haunted objects. So that's an exciting part of the story. The crow's name is French Fry, and I have a big, giant crow-shaped space in my heart for her. And my fashion choice tonight is my birthday present from last year from my family, which is pajamas that are scary stories to tell in the dark. So that's what we've got going on tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. There's so much. I mean, not only the awesome pajamas, but like there's so much awesome things going on with this story. And we have readers who have said they love the Halloween cozy perfection. So you're going to love A Touch of Ruckus if you haven't read it before. And there are too many things to ask about. And so I want everyone in the comments, like, dive in, Jacqueline and Fleur, dive in. But I want to start with something that you mentioned that was kind of the romance and the crush element between Tenny and Fox, because I feel like there's so many like sweet moments. I especially love when there's like the Halloween like buckets, so you can like the jack-o'-lantern things with like the lights in them, and they're like floating on the water. And so Fox has like set this scene up, and it's like kind of a cool thing when they're first like contacting the ghosts and whatnot, and they're in like the little tent, and there's like quilts, and like, so it's really cozy. Like I love that. And you know, romance isn't like something you see too often in middle grade. So I love that whole thing that you've kind of built there. Do you want to talk a little bit more about like these two, and then also like their powers combined in an interesting way too? So just tell us more about like their friendship and slash romance.
Well, it's not signed in. You can go ask someone else for help. I have a kid who's sitting here trying to enter her own comments because I'm pretty sure she would like to embarrass me with a few questions.
That is awesome. I encourage
plotting questions that would be like the most likely to make me squirm. So I really enjoyed writing Tenny and Fox. I think I love writing characters that are kind of opposite to each other in personality and in what they want from life. So Tenny really loves not having her world be upset too much. You know that song, the Beatles song, Nothing Gonna Change My World? That would be like her theme song. She likes for things to be chill and cozy and predictable and for everyone to get along. And Fox is kind of the opposite completely. They really enjoy exciting things and out of the ordinary things and being shocked and surprised and a little bit shocking and surprising other people too. And I think that often people who are very different from each other want to spend a lot of time together. They share a love for Halloween, but they love different aspects of it, I think. So they have some things in common, but a lot of what they want is not in common, and they kind of challenge each other in that way. Tenny will sit with something forever, will consider other people's feelings, very soft-hearted, very compassionate toward other people. And I think that Fox is too in their own way. But they're more likely to avoid negative emotions of other people instead of trying to understand them. They kind of want to run away from them because they're maybe used to getting blamed for them sometimes. Which are aspects of both characters that I relate to and related to a lot as a kid as well. So it was really fun to get to write two characters that were similar and yet so different, and that could really challenge each other. One might say, hey, step out of your circle of comfort a little bit and try something new and exciting. And the other one might say, hey, slow down and think about this a little more, because that in itself can be its own adventure and challenge. So yeah, it was so much fun to get to write the two of them.
Yeah, it's so sweet. And I love too how it's like they kind of discover new aspects of their abilities that they can only access when they kind of combine together. So that was like really cool. And then also how they have like different priorities when it comes to this whole ghost hunting situation, and it kind of leads to some arguments like between them.
Yes, absolutely. Tenny would really like to, in true Tenny fashion, when she sees a ghost that seems to be upset about something, the first thing Tenny thinks is, "How can I help it?" So she wants to get in there and understand what their motivation is a little bit, as long as it doesn't disrupt her own apple cart too much. And Fox doesn't ever want the ghost hunting to end. Tennessee is like, how can we put them at rest so they'll stop messing things up? And Fox is like, how can we never put them at rest so we don't ever have to do anything boring again? But behind that impulse in Fox is their own kind of secret, I guess, that they have, and their own pain that they're trying to avoid. So slowing down and learning how to put things at rest would mean saying goodbye to some things, which I think is a challenge that a lot of people who are adventurous in heart in nature might struggle with. So it was nice to get to write that aspect of both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to talk about the secrets at some point and the
Yes.
memories. But we do have a question from Bailey. What is your favorite thing about writing middle grade? And I feel like there's a code. I mean, this book is so beautiful and cozy, but like middle grade in general is a little bit about coziness. So was it a little bit, was it like the cozy aspect, or are there other reasons why you love middle grade?
Oh goodness. I think the cozy might just come it might just come naturally to me because my whole life, no matter what's going on, I've kind of always been like, well, we're going to make the most of it. Like, we'll figure out a way to make this tolerable. I'm definitely the morale brigade in most groups that I'm in, which is nice. But I think my favorite thing about middle grade is that you can talk about things that are very uncomfortable or really difficult, and in some cases, like really I don't know, other people might consider them to be like uh there be monsters, right? There are things that we don't like to think about and talk about, like death and the bridge to Terabitha. Like, there are a lot of things that are pretty heavy in middle grade, but you can kind of address it in a way that is really honest and has like a solid amount of unflinching hope. I think that adults can get either squeamish about the tough stuff or really squeamish about the hope. That seems to be like we fall in one direction or the other. And middle grade says, no, we're going to do both, and we're going to make it work. And I think that adult literature is wonderful, but I think it has a really tough time pulling off both. But children still have that ability to access like deep honesty about like the kind of harsh reality of things, but also like this idea that, and it'll be okay, right? You usually only find that in very young people and very old people. And maybe everyone in between is kind of like trying to get back to that place of I can be unflinchingly honest, but also hold out hope that it'll be fine. Like, it'll be fine. Things will be okay. And that's what I love the most. Bailey, I love that question so much. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yes, that's an excellent question. We have Miss Mancini who says they only read MG.
Yeah, understandable.
MG is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm partial. Yes.
We are all partial here, I think. And I do want to ask about secrets. And I know, Jacqueline, like I see you unmuting over there. So let me give you a chance to ask your question.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt, but speaking of like middle grade and something I loved so much about this book, something I think you did so beautifully was just remembering sort of that sense of scale of, like Kim was talking about, the romance element. The romance is just kind of this little spark of a romance. It's like obviously the first time Tenny has held hands with someone and you have that feeling of like that electricity all through your body. And then later on when Fox hurts her, it's really through kind of a small thing, but you did it so believably that I was just like, oh, I was so, yeah, aching for her. And so I wonder, like, how do you keep sort of that middle grade mindset as you write these emotional moments? I know you're also a parent. So are you just like, are you remembering your own middle grade self? Do you use, keeping close to those children as your inspiration? What do you do?
Oh my goodness. I think I do have a really strong memory of that age. Having kids in that age group in my house kind of helps. But also, like, if we're talking like super candidly, like I tend to be a very sensitive person myself. Like, I'm pretty optimistic and definitely resilient. But I'm also very anxious. And I have like I probably would be described as like rejection dysphoria, which I think a lot of people experience. It comes like a lot of people who are neurodivergent or have like attention deficit stuff going on. Things tend to stay very like where other people might sometimes eventually develop like, I don't know, not calluses, but like, oh, that's no big deal. Like, I don't think I ever learned to not feel things, if that makes sense. So like, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. And I think it's a blessing in that it's very easy to remember what things feel like the first time they happen, and to be like exquisitely sensitive to that and be really in touch with your own emotions as that happens. Like, of course, in some ways I'm a jaded Gen X, older millennial cusper, right? Sure. But I definitely do kind of keep, I don't know that I wear my feelings on my sleeves, but I do like neurologically experience things in a very sensitive way. And I think that helps a lot. Um, and I have a lot of compassion for people, and young people especially, who are going through things without like the ability to contextualize it through like multiple memories that they have. I have so much compassion for them, because I remember and know what it feels like to have all those fireworks and all those doubts, which is again like one of the reasons I absolutely adore middle grade, right? Like, it gives like a blueprint or a safe way to experience some of that in like an experimental way without having to put all of your heart out there. This is why I adored it when I was younger, especially as a young reader. Oh my goodness, like all the Judy Blume books, all the Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, or Ramona Quimby. Like, all of that was such a nice rehearsal for like the big feelings that happen during adolescence. Yeah, I really like that question a lot.
I love that. And we have some great questions in the chat as well. We had a question: what was your inspiration for writing A Touch of Ruckus?
That's a really good question. That is my teenager, who was very sweet for coming to my event. Hi, Nomi. Thank you. My inspiration for writing A Touch of Ruckus started like, oh my goodness, I think it went through like 3 iterations. It was like, at one point it was a Victorian alt history story about resurrectionists and graves robbers. At one point it was like a portal story about like this creeping decay that was the result of a curse in some random old historic town. Like, but the thing that stayed the same were the characters from each one. Like, it was the same couple that kept coming up. So Tinny and Fox are really the heart of the story. So I was like, I really like this character and I really like the voice, but I need, like, I'm trying to figure out the setting and it's not working. So I was actually talking to my agent about that, and she was like, write a ghost story. You're like, I bet you could pull off a ghost story. And I was like, I bet I could too. And so I pitched the idea to my editor, and my editor was actually like, why don't you put it in Howler's Hollow? That would be amazing. Just stick another story in Howler's Hollow. That's great. It would be interesting to see how a ghost story played out there. So it was kind of like a 3-person effort. Yeah. But the original, I'm getting signs here. It was your question. That was a good question. My 9-year-old says that was my question. Okay, that was your question. Good job. Give me 5. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it was kind of like a group effort, which I think most stories are in the end, kind of a group effort. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and we have some excellent questions coming in. So keep those questions coming in the chat. We had actually a couple people that asked about your character names. So they love all of the names, and especially a couple people asked about Tenny. One of those questions from Stella and one from Bailey. So how do you come up with your names?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's my favorite thing to do, and I just kind of sit there and run through words until it sounds right. So I'll spend like an entire day just sitting there going through words, and of course I kind of think about like where the person is from, like Lancaster. like the area that the family is from originally, like there's a lot of Scotch Irish people. There's a lot of people who are German. Lancaster's German, so I was like, okay, we'll use that last name. And the idea of taking like a place name, it was really popular where I lived. I lived in like Eastern Tennessee, right on the South Carolina, North Carolina border, and also in North Georgia. And it was really common for people to have place names as their actual name. Like, for instance, my late grandfather's name was Denver. So yeah, I was like, well, what would make a great name? I was like, well, I've never met anyone named Tennessee, but that's a great name. So that's kind of how her name happened. And I was also thinking about the fact that Fox is non-binary, and a lot of people who are non-binary choose their own names, because sometimes you're born with a name that feels like really strongly gendered, and some people keep those names because they're really comfortable with them, and some people like rename themselves. For instance, like my name is Ash, in my name that is not my writing name is Alder, which is a name that I chose for myself, and that's a tree name. So I know a lot of non-binary people who choose nature names or nature-based names, and I was like, Fox is good. Also, I'm a huge X-Files fan, so that was like kind of an easy animal
Me
win.
too. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about nature though, because like one of the huge things in this book, like there's so many scenes when the characters are like walking through nature, and like Tenny's just like experiencing all the beauty of nature, and it really comes out. And then of course there's like a storyline about protecting nature as well. So like, does this come, like, I know, and I also see you posting beautiful pictures too of nature, which maybe is similar to Tenny. But where does this love of nature come from?
Oh my goodness. Well, I grew up outside. Like, I was outside all the time. My grandparents, I had grandparents who lived on a river at one point. Like, it was in their backyard, so I just spent time on the water constantly. I grew up like near the mountains and hiking in the mountains and driving through the mountains. I had grandparents who lived on like a large farm that had like lots of wooded areas. So like going outside and like, I don't know, building lean-tos and climbing trees. Like, I have this great story of like the one time I almost killed myself climbing into a persimmon tree and reading. I was just laying on my back, like balancing and reading, and it didn't fall off. The branch broke, and like I fell flat on my back out of this tree while reading. But it was always that, like, I was outside all the time. We're still outside all the time. My spouse and I spent a lot of time hiking when we first met. And it's just kind of where I go to reset. So like I get blissed out by nature. It doesn't really matter too much what kind. Like I love being in wetlands and swamps and mountains and meadows. Like as long as it's outside, I'm kind of into it. I like bugs. So like if you go hiking with me, I'm not like a really purpose-driven hiker. I'm like the person who is like on my belly, getting covered in mud, taking pictures of things and crawling around in the dirt and talking to snails. Like this is kind of just what I do. So it was really important to me to put some of that into the book and into Tenny's character as well, but also like it was important to me to write kind of an homage, like where I lived for goodness, like 18 years, I guess, right before I moved to Washington, which is where I am now. That's a great question. My favorite kind of bug. I'll have to come. I think it's a rosy maple moth, I think is my favorite. It's not a true bug, but it's an insect, so we'll go with it. Where I used to live was up in Ocoee or close to Ocoee in Tennessee. And the Ocoee River was actually it's near like copper mines, so they had done a lot of strip mining, and it was declared a dead river for a long time because all of the heavy metal that leached into the water just killed everything. There wasn't anything that lived in it. But that's a story of like Appalachia in general, I think it's like over 400 mountains in the Appalachian range have been completely destroyed because they have mountaintop removal, which is basically just lobbing off the entire top of the mountain and exposing like heavy metals that are in the center that wouldn't otherwise make their way into the rivers, and just generally doing like a lot of damage to like the finances of the small communities who live there, but also like to the wildlife, which it was really important for me to talk about it and kind of put that in my books, because a lot of people don't think Appalachians eco-activists, but there are just generations upon generations of artists and eco-activists who have come from Appalachia, of every race and every like social status, who have really fought hard to protect the mountains and the natural resources there. So it was kind of like my love letter a little bit to the nature of the region where I came from. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you have the villain in the story,
Yeah.
Bolton, or
Ooh, he's such a sleaze bag.
who, like, in one scene kind of talks about like the small lives of the people who are living in Howler's Hollow as compared to like his grand ambitions for money-making schemes and whatnot.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I thought that was an interesting conversation that he brought up as the evil villain. But yeah, like you said, like people thinking that only like one type of life and existence is like worthwhile, and that like kind of living this like quiet, like in sync with nature life is small somehow.
Yeah, which it's so interesting. I do in my day job, which I no longer work as, so I feel like okay talking about it. I did like a whole lot of copy editing for people who were CEOs of companies, for people who are company owners, for people who are like multi-millionaires who decided it was time for them to write a book. And it was so interesting to hear how most of them, by the time they got around to writing books, what they wanted to write was not necessarily financial advice. What they wanted to write was, in their 60s and 70s, was take more time for your family, spend more time outside. Because these are the things that actually matter. And I think at the end of the day, like that really is what the human soul craves, right? Like we want to eat nice food. We want to put our feet in the dirt. We want to be able to take a nap sometimes. Like we want to get together with friends and like shoot the breeze and watch birds. And I think that most people are happy as being hobbits at heart, even if they're adventuring hobbits. Like most people are kind of hobbity secretly, and you can be ambitious and do that in a mindful way. And I think that it's when you have this decision that the only life that matters is by like this metric of financial success or power success. Well, I mean, like, I can't believe that's true, because everyone can't have that. And if everyone can't have that, I don't think that it's like an evolutionary human imperative for happiness, right? Like, it makes more sense that humans would be geared to wanting things that actually make us happy. Someone one time, I'm not sure who, said humans are terribly, terribly bad at guessing what's going to make them happy. And I think that's so true. Like we have these ideas and standards. Sorry, I'm going like all full on servant on a box. About what's going to make us happy. And I think most often what we're actually looking forward to is like vacation, but it's like the little moments that come to us, like, oh, look, there's a seal. Oh, look at that squirrel. Look at, whatever. Maybe that's not your thing, but usually the things that really do make us like incandescently happy is small moments that we share with each other that are meaningful. Anyway, I got long-winded on that one, but that's the heart of the book, I think, for the most part. So I'll forgive myself for going off a little bit.
Yes, no, I love that. And we've had so many great questions come in. So I want to get back to a couple of these. And one of them was about voice. So from
Yeah.
Bailey, the voice in Cattywampus is one of my absolute favorites. I recommend it to everyone I meet. Is there something you could recommend to authors trying to nail that kind of MG voice in their own work?
Yes, I was just talking about this, and if anybody else wants to pipe in with advice on this, I'm like not so very experienced. So if anybody else has add tos, please add to it. I would be happy to hear what you have to say as well. I think the thing that worked for me, I can just tell you what worked for me, which is when I first started writing, I would pick authors that had really strong voice. Like I didn't really know how they pulled it off, but I know that they did pull it off. And so I would read like an entire book by them, and I would try to write a single page in that voice. And then I would do it again with another book that was a different voice, and I would try to write a single page. And then I would like put all my pages together and notice the parts that popped out that were similar, right? And that was my voice coming through consistently through the ones that I was trying to imitate. And I was like, oh, that's me. That's what I look like. So it was kind of helpful for me to like put them side to side. It would be kind of like if you were cosplaying over and over as a different person. Like if you took a composite of all of those and found the similarities, you would eventually be like, oh, that's what I look like. I could draw a picture of myself now, right? So that's what helped me. And I don't remember. I think somebody may have actually given me the advice to try to copy somebody else. But it helps. It helps. And it helps to just like, I don't know. If you're a character, don't try to hide the fact that you're a character. That probably is your voice, you know? Like, don't try too terribly hard to blend in, because who you are is well, other people can't manufacture it. You're the only one who can. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we also had a follow-up, which was like, what are some of your favorite books that exemplify great voice? So I'll give you a second to consider that. That's always a tough one. I was like, it's so hard to come up with titles. But,
oh my goodness. I'm going to try to maybe my kids are watching and they can help. They have such better memory for books. I remember the characters and I don't remember book titles, which is terrible. There's one called, oh my goodness. Now I'm not going to be able to remember it. I think it's Sarah Prenius is the author. And it is a book about, so you could probably look that up. It has The Magic Thief. The Magic Thief by Sarah Prenius has one of the best examples of just truly unique voice. And it's not limited to just like expressions or turn of phrase. It's like a rhythm. It's a very specific rhythm that she writes in. There's like a certain cadence that you expect like throughout. And each of the characters also has their own distinct voice, but it's still written like within her specific voice. That's actually one of the ones that I sat down and tried to write like. And I'm just a very big fan of that book series in particular, especially when it comes to voice and writing style. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and we've had a couple of questions about like favorite books come in too. So what is an MG book you read and loved recently? And somebody asked about what is your favorite book as well?
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to come up with a favorite book because I'm just not that great at picking favorites. I don't even have a favorite color. I don't have a favorite meal. I just like a lot of things. So what I'm going to do is open up my Audible, because I actually listen to audiobooks a lot more often than I sit down and read, because I'm busy and a little hyperactive sometimes. I've really enjoyed The Stars of Whistling Ridge recently. Also, I'm looking for the title because I have a terrible memory, but Jacqueline's latest book, I really enjoyed so very much. It had like such vibes and mood. Also, I just read The Jingle Jangle Man and it scared the absolute bejibbers out of me. It was so terrifying. I recommend it so highly. I enjoyed it. It gave me the creeps in a really big way. Also, Supriya Kelkar wrote a book called That Thing About Bollywood. And so it's this girl who's like dealing with difficult things in her family. Like her parents are talking about maybe separating. And so like she wakes up one morning and she usually bottles her feelings inside, but she really loves Bollywood movies to kind of like process. She wakes up and like her whole life is a Bollywood and people are singing and they're like she's like singing and dancing and she can't stop herself and she's like expressing her feelings at school and at the dinner table, and it's just like completely delightful. It's like nothing that I've ever heard before. The premise is great, but it's also really beautifully executed. And I was feeling the main character all the way through. I thought it was so good. Yeah, I honestly, I get excited about the last few things that I've read always. Like I love new stories, keep them coming. I don't tend to like attach myself really hard to a certain favorite. I do love Ocean at the End of the Lane quite a lot. Yeah, but I don't know. The last few books I've read are usually the ones I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I love that. I know the Ocean at the End of the Lane was like when I read that, I was like, yeah, that's if I was to write an adult book, like I wish I had written that one.
Yes,
perfect,
that one
exactly.
in particular. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly
Yes.
what I want to write.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Those are all so good. And I want to give Flora a chance to chime in before I just keep coming back to the chat, but we haven't gotten to hear from you yet.
I've just been listening and I'm loving the conversation. I'm loving hearing you talk with such passion about middle grade and everything else. The one burning question I have is, do you believe in ghosts?
Ooh, oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble with all my friends. It's so controversial. You know, sometimes no, but when I'm alone and I'm hearing weird stuff and strange things are happening and it just feels too much like coincidence, like I dreamed a few years ago when my grandfather passed away, I dreamed that he came to see me the night that he passed away and I didn't know he had passed away, and I dreamed he came to see me and he talked to me. So like, what does that mean? I don't know. I guess maybe. I'm not closing the door on the possibility. Do you believe in ghosts?
I'm the same. I'm like, give me some more evidence, because I'm sort of a facts and sciencey sort of person. So for me, I'm like, I'm not sure. It's not but like you, it's sort of when you're alone or when there's a moment where it just feels a little too much like coincidence. I think that's the perfect way to put it.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I always just use the X-Files motto, like I want to believe, but in real life, I like subscribe to Skeptical Inquirer. Like in real life, I'm a Scully, but I would like to be a Fox.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, let's see. We've had a couple of great questions come in the chat. From Miss Nikki, do you have any suggestions for my students that will help them write better dialogue? We're working on stories right now and think they could push their characters farther.
I would say that they should pull a Tenny and snoop. I think that if they could, like, I don't know, listen and don't eavesdrop on a conversation that you're gonna regret eavesdropping on. But if it's like casual in public, listen to the way that other people talk, because the way other people talk is not in full sentences. We tend to start when we talk, and we can't always put that on the page because people have a little bit more patience when we're talking out loud than if we like do all the start stops that we do while we're talking in real life. But people tend to, talk in partial sentences or interrupt each other. Certain people have certain things that they repeat a lot, like favorite phrases. So if you could listen to that and be like, okay, I could give one of my character like a favored speech pattern that they tend to lean into a lot. If they say cool beans a lot, then have that character be the one who says it consistently, right? Don't give that line to someone else. Like that's their thing. And that way you can kind of make the voices distinct from each other. listen to, if you have a favorite family member that likes to talk. For instance, my brother pauses a lot when he talks because he likes to gather his thoughts, right? So you might, if you have a character who does that a lot, you might put like maybe a little bit more pausing and like body language tags, but just for that person, right? As opposed to a character who always knows what they want to say. Yeah, just listen in, see what you notice. I bet you'll notice things that I'm not even saying right now. I bet you'll come up with your own ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to listen more too. It's harder to people watch over the past like couple years, but I feel like it's a good, yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Because if you just kind of get it from TV and books, you're not getting that same kind of like authenticity, really. But yeah, I love it. Well, we had a really interesting question from Daniel. Both of your books so far have included songs, Appalachian ballads / Appalachian ballads. Is there anywhere they're recorded where we could hear them?
Oh, that's a good, that's a good question. Well, actually, one of the books, the campfire song that Poppy sang, we actually did a Halloween spooky or Halloween and summer spooky like special, and I think that's still on the YouTube channel, isn't it? But I think I sang that. That one is original. That one is not an existing ballad. But I think in Cattywampus there was Ida Mea, which is like the song that the zombies were singing when they both came up out of the ground and went back under the earth. And I think Pretty Polly is a murder ballad that Katie Bird started singing to Puppet when she was trying to soothe him, which maybe is not the best thing to choose if you're trying to soothe someone as a murder ballad. Let me put you to sleep with this spooky song. Yeah, but both of those, I actually think that my Cattywampus playlist is still published, and I will post that on my Twitter account after for anyone who's interested. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for that great question as well. Well, Jacqueline, I want to give you a chance too to ask another question because I have too many. So
Okay. Oh yeah, finding my unmute button again. I'm really glad that actually he just mentioned the song because I was going to ask if that was a traditional that I just didn't know, or if that was something you came up with on your own, and it sounds like it was. And I love it. It's so creepy. What will the waves wash up next as a chorus? So, do you write music? Are you a song composer? Is that something else that you do?
Yes. Kind of. When I was a teenager, it was like my big outlet. Like I didn't write stories when I was a teenager. I wrote songs. So I did a lot of that. My grandmother actually wrote country music, and some of her country music was like performed by artists. I think Tanya Tucker did one of her songs at one point. So like I kind of grew up with people like singing in the kitchen, or like my granddad used to he had this gravel pit voice like Poppy's, where he would just get out a guitar and then he would start just singing random stuff in the kitchen after we ate breakfast. Like Hattie the Swamp Witch, she would just like start singing random stuff. So I heard a lot of those kind of ballads, and then I continued to love him as an adult. So I kind of sat down and I was like, okay, I want to write a song in the style of something I might have heard my own granddad sing. So that was actually, it went really fast. I think I wrote it in like an hour. And it was probably my favorite part of writing A Touch of Ruckus. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I haven't talked about that yet, so I'm kind of excited to get to talk about it. My little music aspiring part is proud.
Yeah, I love that. And definitely, yeah, go check out our Summer Spooktacular is the one, right? On our YouTube channel. It's hanging out there. You can see the original live performance. And we had a couple of questions. And we had 2 people actually asking. So from Stella, are you going to write another book? And from Bailey, what can you tell us about what you're working on now?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a project that has not been announced yet. But I think I can talk a little bit about it. I'm writing a story about a character who has this one is just a little bit magical. It's like a little bit of magical realism. It's not quite as fantastical as Cattywampus or A Touch of Ruckus, but it's gonna be funny and really good. I promise. Don't leave. um, it's about a character who lives with their mom, and mom has like kind of a problem with like some bad stuff has happened. And sometimes when, bad things happen, people turn to different things to cope with them. And her mom has like an addiction problem. And so with that comes like some difficulty. Her mom kind of is in this pattern of going to a new place, and getting a job and having people like trying to get people to like her. And then like her struggles kind of catch up with her. And then her mom's like, we got to move to a new town. We got to wipe the slate clean and start over again. So this character is very used to kind of being a chameleon or a shapeshifter and turning into whatever that new town or those new teachers or those new group of people most would want to see a person be. She just makes herself that person. So eventually things catch up with both of them. And she goes and stays with an aunt who lives in a trailer park, who has kind of turned this big mansion house that she used to live in into like this place that's a big community garden, and they've turned the mansion into apartments where people can live. And there she notices that she keeps on trying to figure out what people want her to be, and the people there don't necessarily want her to be anything. That's very confusing. She's never had that happen before. And so as that happens, this shadow starts following her around and prodding her into doing things that she knows her mom would super not approve of. So this is kind of like the story of her figuring out what the shadow is, what it wants from her, and why does she so badly want to do some of these things that it's trying to nudge her towards doing that will really piss her mom off. So I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to finish writing it and share it with people. So you can probably watch for news about that sometime in the next couple of months. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm super excited. It sounds amazing. All caps. Absolutely, it does.
I'm excited.
Yes, I love it. Well, and I do remember we had an interesting comment, I guess, that I kind of skipped past, and because I was just looking at my notes, and this is totally not one of my deep and meaningful questions, but I wanted to mention the costume, Fox's like French fry costume, like the crow.
Yes, like the crow from The Crowaning.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was really amazing. And yeah, I do want to be Moira Rose when I grow up one day too. So so that was really cool. Like, so are you anticipating that readers are going to dress up as this character? Are you going to dress up as French fry maybe? Or
we'll have to see about the later part of that question. Oh, I don't know. We'll see. I do know I had a reader who contacted me already and told me that they were planning on dressing up as Fox this year, I think. So I don't know if there's like a little French fry spin on that. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I can't get Moira Rose out of my head. I think if I did it, I might have to do like a Fox as a crow, Moira Rose mashup.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even have to like dress up as Moira Rose for Halloween. I'm just gonna do it every day because that's how I roll.
I think that you should totally memorize the Vineyard speech, like start to finish. I would come watch you recite that. I think that would be wonderful.
I would love that. Well, follow up from Bailey. What are you going to be for Halloween? We should probably make Jacqueline and Fleur answer too.
I think so too. I think you should start with Jacqueline and Fleur.
Yeah. Jacqueline, what are you going to be for Halloween?
Well, my plan is my husband got me a weird present and got me prescription red contact lenses. Just for fun.
I
have an extremely strong prescription.
They're really painful.
So, yeah, but they work well enough, and yet they're pixelated, so you can kind of see through them. But they work well enough that I'm going to be able to walk around trick-or-treating with my kids, and then if anyone gets close to me, totally freak them out. Like, that's my plan, is to otherwise be fairly subtle, and then demonic eyes. Yeah.
They're going to be freaked out because I got those years ago when I was working at the public library, and I was like, I'm just going to be like a vampire or whatever. So but I got prescription red contact lenses.
Oh my gosh.
You could only see through like the evil. You can't see through the iris. And so you're just
oh my gosh.
Yeah, if they move around, you're kind of.
Yeah. But like the kids were like freaked out. It was awesome. They were like genuinely scared of these eyes.
That's great. I love that.
And I got a prescription because I was like, I'll use these again, obviously.
Clearly.
No, they're
anytime I want to walk into the wall.
I know, that really hurts. I feel bad for actors and everybody who has to wear that.
Yeah, oh my God.
Painful. Fleur, what about you?
I'm so boring compared to everybody else. We live in a neighborhood where the houses are kind of spread out, so we're lucky if we get, like one or two trick-or-treaters. So I'm always kind of bummed because I love it. We used to live in an area where there were tons of kids. We have our house decorated, but I try not to make it so scary that the kids don't want to come because there's already so few coming. So I'm kind of like the friendly witch. Try not to scare anybody off. And I like the little ones, when they come in the costumes. It's fun. So yes, I'm kind of boring. I'm a witch, but it's fun to sort of make the house the witch house. So.
Yes, Halloween is not complete without at least one cozy witch house.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agree. Yes. Well, I don't know what I'm going for as Halloween. Like I thought that I might be. Have you read Gideon the Ninth yet? Okay, so I thought about going as Gideon the Ninth, who is like kind of like a necromancer's bodyguard, and Gideon is like super buff and sword wielding and has like skull paint and red hair. And I was gonna do red hair, I guess, before Halloween, but that just has not happened. I do have the buff down though. I've been weightlifting. So maybe I'll still try out Gideon the Ninth, or like who knows, maybe I'll dress up as French fry. We'll see.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, I'm actually the most boring because I'm probably not even going to do anything for Halloween this year. Like, I would really like to. But I mean, I don't have kids and I live in an apartment complex, so nobody trick-or-treats here.
You can't do body Halloween all year long, though. Like
I do.
Yeah,
yes. And I pretty much my whole wardrobe is Halloween. And I will say, like, back when I was still, like, going outside to buy groceries, I just like order them online now. But like the last time I remember going to the grocery store, I think it must have been like around Halloween, so it was probably like last year. Anyway, I wasn't wearing a costume, but whatever I was wearing, the cashier thought it was such an amazing Halloween costume that they wanted to take a picture of me and like put it up in the break rooms. And I was just wearing my regular clothes. And I was like, thank you so much. So, I mean, it was a compliment, but yeah, I kind of dress like it's Halloween every day. So.
I love it. Is your sweater, is that skeletal cats on your sweater?
Of course. Yeah, they are. They are skeleton cats. As
fantastic. I love it.
As one does. We also have a Beetlejuice. Apparently Bailey is going as Beetlejuice. And the real scary one, Miss Nikki's dressing up as me. So that's going to be terrifying. And we have an Anne of Green Gables.
Aww.
I love that one.
That's going to be fabulous. I love that.
That is going to be amazing. Well, we have had so many amazing questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Jacqueline and Fleur, but I do want to remind people we still have a few minutes. If you have any final questions, get those in the chat. But Jacqueline and Fleur, let me give you a chance to ask like a final burning question.
All right, well, I'll jump in, and it's not really a burning question, but I am also obsessed with corvids and crows and ravens, and got a little soul right now. So I was just wondering if you have any, like, I know you're a garden person. Do you have any little wild animal friends who are kind of your special people?
I do. I very much like crows. Everywhere I've ever lived, there's been a murder like close to our house. I mean, not everywhere. When we had apartments, I guess they hung around there too. But like I've lived in 2 houses. And so both houses that I've lived in, we've had crows that lived close by. And one of them actually was a murder, kind of like French fries. There was a member that was injured and didn't have the ability to walk around very well. But he kind of acted as a sentry, and he was full grown. It wasn't like a baby. It was like a full grown crow. That's just how they rolled. And they brought him like food and little like treasures and things. And he watched out for the rest of the group. And I thought, man, I wish people were more like that. Yeah, so they were really great. And I also, I'm kind of, my spouse is kind of like Snow White, I guess. Like wherever he goes, like animals come to him. It's kind of amazing. Or like Dickon from The Secret Garden, right? So we used to have this fox that was just for whatever reason enamored with, he would like leave him little things outside, and the fox would like come up in our yard and like play around the yard and sit in the yard with my spouse. He's just out there chilling, like hanging out with foxes is a thing that you do. So I really like foxes. I'm very partial to foxes, otters, like river otters, for obvious reasons. And crows. Yeah, I'm into them. This year we've had a lot of hummingbirds. I like spiders too. Spiders are like orb weavers in particular. I like them a lot. We get along, me and orb weavers. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I've had a spider hanging out in my like umbrella light for this whole week. So every time I have to move it for my visits, I'm like, where is it? If I literally touching it, it's just hanging out. It's cool. We're friends.
I kind of like need to know where you are though.
Yeah, I just want to see you first. Yeah. I know when I'm going to be touching you. But we have what wild companion animal should we watch out for in your next book?
Well, I've been experiencing like a mild amount of guilt for putting so many wild animals as pets in the books, because you're not actually supposed to do that. I have like a soft spot for it because my great grandmother and one of my great aunts used to like, they had so many animals they were not supposed to have. Like there was maybe like not such strong rehabilitation in the 60s and the 70s and 80s as there are rehab programs now. Maybe that's not true. Maybe they just did a lot of illegal things. But like my great grandmother had a skunk named Stinky. And it was like her pet. I guess he got his stench maker removed. I don't know. Don't do that, kids. You're not supposed to. Don't do it. So I've been thinking about making the next animal. Well, I can tell you, I'll give you a little, there's a pug in the next book whose name is Bella Pugosi. So that's fun. So that's kind of wild in its own way, I guess. I'll probably put a lot of spiders in. There are fireflies and spiders, so maybe those can be the pets.
Yeah, those can count.
Yeah.
So is Bella like a vampire pug, or
he has a severe underbite and his canines stick out.
Awesome.
So that's Bella.
Yeah, I love it. That is amazing. Let's see. Oh, Fleur, did you have a final burning question that you wanted to ask?
Oh man, the only thing I was kind of circling back to how you opened and you talked so much about your characters, which clearly is the most beautiful part, I think, of the book. How much do you draw from your own experience or your own self, and how much of it is you and how much of it is sort of made up, I guess, is the question.
That's a really good question. Well, I think that most people contain multitudes. So I do draw really heavily from my own experiences, right? Or like aspects of my own experiences and parts of myself. I also really enjoy people watching. People are my favorite. Like I love idiosyncratic people and interesting people and boring people. Like I like watching people. So I think that like I never lift anyone directly from my life and stick them in, except for maybe Mr. Bolton. But you know, if you wanted to be remembered better, act better. But everybody else is kind of like little bits and pieces and like little aspects of myself, I guess. Yeah, or people that I love a lot, or like things about people that I love a lot. Like I have like an inordinate amount of peacemakers in my life, I think, and people who like really just enjoy making the road smooth for everybody. So like that character in particular was kind of like my loving homage to everyone in my life who kind of plays that part for other people, and also as like a loving reminder that they get to matter as well. Yeah, so yeah, yes to all. Yes to all. I like that question a lot. Do you tend to do the same thing when you're writing, or
Me, yeah, same. I think it's sort of like you create a recipe for a person. But I love what you said about the homage to those people. That's a really nice thing. It makes a book special, I think.
yeah. Oh, I like that. A recipe for a person. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like I like that. I like that.
It just makes me think of the Twilight Zone episode where they figure out like it's a cookbook for humans. The benevolent aliens visit and they're trying to decipher the title of the book, and it's like how to cook humans.
Fricassee,
note.
baby.
Yeah, it's so yummy. Well, we are just about out of time, but we did have a question that I totally skipped up here from Bailey. What's your favorite middle grade trope?
Oh boy.
They're hitting us with the tough ones now.
It's not the chosen one. That's like my least favorite trope. I'm not a big fan of that trope. Wow. I think one of my friends who is a YouTuber, who's a booktuber, the other day said that my personal brand is one person meets another person who's completely their opposite. They don't get along. They have to solve a problem together and chaos ensues. And I think that's actually probably accurate. Like someone is super challenged by a person who's just baffling to them and they're staring at them like a calf staring at a new fence, and then chaos ensues. I think that might be my favorite. Somebody, I think if you had to boil that down to middle grade trope, it would be like we accidentally let this Pandora's box open, and now we have to figure out how to deal with the fallout. I think that's my favorite, because who is organized and suave the first time they try to do something? No one ever, especially not when they're young. The first time you try to do something, you mess it all up, and then you have to figure out how to fix it. So I think that's my favorite because it's the most realistic.
Yeah, I love that. And we have Miss Nikki who is yelling at us. Wait, I have one last question. So let me just hang on for that because I might have a little delay on my end here. But I also, well, again, not one of my deep and meaningful questions, but it's just like, I really needed to know, what is clunky jackalopes? Like, what is that? Like, how do you can you teach me how to play this game? Or
so I live in the land of board games. Like nobody likes board games more than Washingtonians like board games. Like they sit inside, they drink coffee, they play D&D, and they like them a board game.
It's the perfect afternoon, right?
It is, and it rains here all winter long, so you kind of have to have something to do. And so, like a lot of the people that we end up meeting end up asking you over for a board game. It's like the way to, and this is my terrible secret. I hate board games with a passion. I can't stand them. I do not like to sit still for them. Like it's kind of like learning how to do the rules for your taxes. Like, why would I do that voluntarily for fun? I hate this. It's so arbitrary. Why would I do it? So what usually happens is I go and I take some kind of like project, like making these little lanterns or something. And then I sit there and I eat their food and I stare at them and I mind my business, or I go look at their books or talk to their cat. And then but my family loves board games, and we spend an inordinate amount of time in the board game aisle looking at card games, and they always have like really weird names like Exploding Kittens or whatever.
I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do someone a favor and name the next board game so that they don't have to. And I was like, well, here's the pattern. It's like weird descriptor plus funny animal. So I was like, okay, clunky jackalopes it is. So that's how it made it into there. But unlike my characters, I do not care for board games at all. Unless it's Balderdash. I am really good at making up like lies for words. Yeah. Otherwise, not interested so much.
That's so funny. I love that. Now I have to just invent that game because I could totally do that. Like if I was on Parks and Rec, I would have invented the Cones of Dunshire or whatever.
Exactly.
I love board.
Exactly. Yes.
And I'm very competitive.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, now that's the rest of my family. Like I hear shouting from the next room, oh, in your face. Woo! And I'm like, what just happened? And they're like, I want it, Uno. And I'm like,
yeah.
But I'm like that with Mario Kart. I love video games and I will scream a lot. So I can relate to this.
I love it. That's so funny. Yes, we did have some reactions when you're talking about board games. We had no.
All these people are like jumping off of my readership. They're never going to talk to me again.
Well, you've just made up the next great game. So you contributed to the world of board games already without even wanting to.
I've done my time. Let me go.
Yes, you did it. You did your part. And we have our final question. We always end with a Miss Nikki question whenever Miss Nikki joins. So our final question, and that is, what kind of Halloween candy would your characters absolutely hate and why?
Fox would really hate mounds because who likes them? And you know what? I'm so sorry, but you're wrong. You're wrong. They're terrible. They've got no nuts in them. They're like almond joys, but sad. And I think that Tenny would really hate. I think Tenny would have a difficult time expressing hate for any candy because she's so used to taking whatever just calms everyone down. And she would pretend to like everything, but secretly she doesn't like, let's see, that corn, the candy corn with the chocolate stripe. That's not it. It's just not it. It's like, it was tolerable as candy corn. I mean, you're eating like a corn flavored candle, I guess. But adding the chocolate stripe is a bridge too far. She could not have that. She secretly drops them behind her.
Yeah. I'm not a candy corn person either, but Jacqueline and Fleur, we should probably make you answer too. So what about Long Lost? Like, what kind of Halloween candy would your characters hate?
Oh my gosh, my Fiona in Long Lost, I would guess, is the big candy eater in her family. Like she mentions, everyone else is a super healthy eater. One parent is a nurse practitioner, the other's anatomy professor, and then her sister's this future Olympian. So she would get everybody else's candy. And then I think she's the kind of kid who would make like a very specific system where like you can have one chocolate and one fruity, and then we're going to save that color for the next day. And that's what she would do. What about you, Fleur?
I think my main character, or one of the main characters, JJ, he likes to ghost hunt and everything. He's a bit of a troublemaker. I think he'd like the whole bars that you get when you go to the right house, and everybody knows where that is, the neighborhood where they give you a full bar of candy, chocolate, none of the cheapo stuff. That's what he would like. Yeah, that's also what I would like.
Yeah, I want a character who like wants the toothbrush. Like that would be the best. Like I need to write a character who like their favorite thing would be like the toothbrush or the box of raisins or whatever. But no, I do have in The Secret Life of Sam. Sam like loves everything orange flavored and hates everything grape flavored because grape is kind of his word that he uses instead of curses because of his dad's love of Orange Crush. So it would be like no grape flavored candy for sure for Sam. But that was an amazing question. And I want to just give a huge thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight and asked their amazing questions. Jacqueline, Fleur, and especially Ash for joining us and discussing A Touch of Ruckus tonight. It was so much fun, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kim, for hosting. Thank you, Jacqueline and Fleur. I'm so happy to have spent the time with you.
Yeah, it was so
much
fun.
Yes.
And before we go, I do want to announce our book for November, and it's actually by Fleur Bradley, Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. Yes, you can see it right back there. And so I'm going to play us out in a little music that'll have like the date and the time info, and you can actually go to our channel and like set a reminder now to join us. So once again, thanks so much, everyone, and I hope you all have an amazing, spooky Halloween this year. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.